Hey everyone, John Doyle from Optics EQ. I'm joined with Emily Gullikson, and our Kentucky Derby prep analysts continue. And I just want to, we're going to attack the Risen Star today. And I just want to thank everyone and your patience, by the way, on our website. So we're working to make things better. So thanks a lot for all that. Yeah, I did the LeComp last time, but I brought Emily in. She really follows the fairgrounds. She knows the fairgrounds really well. She does the notes for us for the fairgrounds. So this is a good race, and I think we got, Emily, I think we got a couple of nice horses in here with some potential. So it's going to be
I think just in terms of timing, this is sort of the timing too for horses to just kind of like step up and present themselves, because outside of the Baffert horses we've talked about and haven't been able to earn points, it's sort of a wide open group where we're sort of looking for that horse to just kind of rise to the top, and a lot of horses that are just kind of sitting there waiting to have that kind of breakthrough race, and now is just kind of the timing calendar for these horses to step up.
Cool. Let's talk about the plot. It's a fit is red. And people new to optics, what that means is we're not quite sure from a predictive standpoint, but still, it's not, you can't handicap a plot like this, right? There's opportunity to look at things differently, but it's just our kind of indicator that, it's not the most predictive plot. Contention looks light, and we're going to get into a race called the LeComp, where a lot of these horses come out of, and that was a different kind of pace dynamic in that race. Speed rating is about average to a little bit above average. So there's some speed horses in here, but it doesn't look like a very contentious pace. And Emily, what I would say for people that use optics plot, one thing that sticks out at me, we have 3 horses that are in red in the RPM. And what that means is their run styles don't match the way they're plotting, and that's a negative. Those horses don't run as well. And you got to always look at the form, but just on first visual, it looks like the 2, 4, and 6 might be up against it. And it actually, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 horses that are green. That means very, really good plot match fit. And that's the 1, the 5, 7, and 8. So it's kind of interesting. Just look at that plot, see which horses kind of work and which horses don't.
Yeah, and I'll mention that kind of goes into the red, where we see those kind of the shift where horses don't line up on that line. So that comes into play. And horses, like the 2, for example, who's listed as the lone E, this horse is just absolutely below on speed figures in class. So even though he's an E, he's just completely overmatched, unable to get the lead against this type of group and this type of field. And then you have a horse like the 6, who is kind of a mismatch as an EP, but a lightly raced type, one that's kind of moving forward with each race. So that'll be factored in as we go through horse by horse.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, that's a point we made. You got to remember, folks, these are 3-year-olds. They're still, growing up. And so there could be a lot of improvement from race to race. Hard to tell. So, you have to do your best and make some assumptions. And that's why we like to rely not only on the plot, which is kind of proven form, but also projected form. And that's the notes. So that's why we use that. So we're going to go to a horse by horse analysis. We're going to start with the number 1, Papa Cap, and he is one of those horses that came out of the LeComp 28 days ago. And what do you think? I mean, I have my opinions on how we run, but what do you think, Emily? I know you probably like this guy.
You think I would like this horse?
No, no, that's right. I'm sorry. There was somebody else trying to say. Okay, I got you. Wait.
Come on, you got to give me a little bit more
I'm
credit.
sorry. I know I confused this. Although it's early in the morning and I had a rough night last time with the website.
Well, we talked about this race just kind of like very briefly before we hit record. So my assessment is pretty much the same as you, where he's had kind of favorable trips, and it just kind of feels like a horse where we've seen what he can do at this point. He's just sort of like, he's presented himself, he's running in the money, but he really just hasn't taken that step forward. He hasn't run that B race, and really without excuse. So while another honest effort is expected, he really hasn't shown that kind of move forward, at least, for me, to give him any edge in this scenario, as far as like a win contender.
Yeah, I just popped up the plot for the LeComp. You can see the speed rating that day was contentions, and the speed rating was high, and it was contentious. And you see the big yellow, that's the 8. He came from way off the pace. But the 3 also he kind of stalked inside. It looked like he had almost like a perfect trip, unless the pace was a little too much for him. But again, going 9 furlongs, I think that doesn't help him either.
Great.
Extra distance. So I'm with you on the 1. Let's switch over to the number 2. This is one of the horses that didn't look like he lined up. To me, it looks like a toss. I don't know What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, it's definitely a toss. I mean, we can stay with number 3 Trafalgar and number 5 Epicenter just because they come out of the same Lecomte. And maybe I don't know, kind of shift around a little bit, but maybe we go
Want 'em- you want them both up together at the same time?
yeah, why not? And then kind of starting with Epicenter, just as far as, kind of sharing a similar position to Papa Cap, coming out
Remember,
of the Lecomte.
there you go.
This is me while I've been getting the new fit that Epicenter finishing second in the Lecomte, he was part of that early pace, and then going to the plot for today's race where he kind of looks like he could have that pace advantage. You sort of know where at least he's going to be positioned in the race at the first call, looking to take this field gate to wire, and he's preferred over Papa Cap just with that little bit of pace advantage and coming out of that common race. But just sort of my overall opinion of Epicenter is similar to Papa Cap in the sense that I feel like I've seen him, like I've seen what he can do. One of these horses that maybe the added ground isn't necessarily going to be to his benefit. Certainly if he gets a lone lead and he's uncontested, could carry, but just from a kind of overall standpoint, where we're looking for these horses to kind of step up, I'm not really seeing that much of a progression from Epicenter.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, for me, just on a visual, unless you kind of, and maybe Trafalgar, needed the race more than Epicenter, right? Because he came off a little bit of a layoff, so that could be a positive. But Epicenter ran a pretty game race considering the dynamics in that race. But I understand you said he might have hit a ceiling, because he's already had the 2 races. So where does he go from here?
Exactly.
Where Trafalgar may have a move up. So I could see, especially the price differential is going to be there too, right? I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as far as Trafalgar, I mean, you are kind of making a long shot case for him, like on a projection, but I feel like that projection could be there. He could be a horse that still does have some upside, where the other ones, they are a little bit more forward, but maybe not have as much upside. And then just as far as, Trafalgar, he mentioned sort of these local connections, and Alstel is one of these trainers that actually, does good work with developing horses with older horses versus, Steve Asmussen, Mark Casse, they're good with sort of everything. But as far as these horses this time of the season, we see them more often with runners, that kind of presenting precocious, presenting fast races, where Alstel is, he'll develop an older horse. We'll see those kind of older handicap horses. So that might be kind of the plan with Trafalgar, just a horse that could just need that development and progression. They are adding the blinkers. CJ Hernandez sticks around to ride. So, there are some things to like, but you are having to make a projection with him. And this is the sort of race where you can't really make that case next time. Like, he has to show that way forward today.
Right. So those are probably the 2 out of Lecomte, right? I don't know if there's anybody else out of that race that I would want, but yeah. So okay. So that's the 3 and the 5. We'll go to the 4, and that's a horse that's kind of making transition from Turfway Park on synthetics. Run 2 good races. What do you think of this horse, Emily? Any line on him?
Well, I looked up, I did end up looking up the race because it was listed as strong, and I don't think it came back as strong as projected, and maybe the strong was just kind of based on the race shape where they went fast early and fast late. So I just think in terms of class, this is going to be a big test, and I will point out like this new feature, which in the grid that actually shows the purse comparison, where he's running, he's running for 62,000, which is no small purse, but it's no 400,000 where he's running today, which is a big step up, especially with some of these other horses that have already had kind of that foundation in class test.
Yeah, good point on the new feature too. I think it's pretty cool.
I like that. I think it's great, and it's unique.
Okay, this 6, and this is another horse. If I just want to flip back to the plot, I think the 4, the 4 really, the other thing about the 4 from a plot perspective, but the 6 you thought might have a little bit more upside, I thought. Emily, was that?
Yeah, I mean, he from a speed figure perspective could be one of these horses that's just a little bit on the improve. I mean, it's the same case to the 4 in the sense that, just in terms of purse, you can obviously see this is going to just be a big step up in class for this horse, but his presence in this race can make things tougher for Epicenter. So, you know, where he could still have a move forward, but at the least you have to consider him as a pace presence. Saez in the ride for Pletcher. So, you know, I think it'll be foot on the gas right from the start.
Yeah. All right. The 7 Zanden. I mean, I've been watching this horse in New York. I watched his first race. You could see that. I mean, if you see some of the extended notes here, kind of thought highly of him. Showed a lot of ability, looks athletic, came back and then ran in the Remsen, ran a really game race against a really good horse in Mondongo, who came back and ran third in the Holy Bull. So the favorite, I think, in this race. That's my opinion. He'd be the favorite. You know, I know the morning line has him maybe it's third choice or something, but my guess is he'll be the favorite in this race.
In my opinion, I think he should be favored in this race, but I don't think he will be, and we'll get to the 8 in a second. But I think we did this race together, right? Did we do this for Donegal? I mean, not this race, I'm sorry, but the Remsen. I remember
Remsen, yes, did the Remsen together, yes.
Yeah, and we really liked Mo Donegal in that race, just for kind of all the reasons that presented him a win. And we were, even though we really liked Zanden as an individual, we pointed out how tough it is for a horse, you know, to not only step up off a maiden win, integrated stakes company, but having to go from 6 furlongs to 9 furlongs, which is an absolutely tough task. And this horse showed his class because he just about did it. I mean, there's really, you can't fault his effort. And so that just shows you just what a good horse it takes to do that. And maybe this individual kind of checks those boxes. And then I can also just kind of make the case, you know, Chad Brown running here, this is a tougher spot than had they have stayed in New York. And what was the race last week? I'm forgetting the name of it, but the Grade 3 race, which was also won by, which one?
The Southwest? No, that one?
No, the one in New York. Was that
New York was the Withers?
Withers, right, which was won by a Chad Brown horse. And I think this horse is so much better. So they could have stayed there, but I think they wanted to give this horse a little bit more of a test, which I think is favorable.
You know, interesting that he shipped, because he doesn't ship horses normally to fairgrounds, right? It's kind of a weird thing. I don't even run too many horses in the 3-year-old series at fairgrounds. I don't recall. Usually
I mean, I don't think so. So I think there is some intention to that point to run in this spot.
He's impressed me in 2 starts. He could be anything. Maybe he comes in here, he's a little short. I don't know. Maybe he's not completely cranked up for this race, but still could be good enough to win anyway.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I got to point out, because people ask me all the time, look at his plot. Okay, so he's a quadrant 3 square. And everyone says, is that good or bad? It's quadrant 3. In his case, it's good. And the reason why is because he's not a horse that needs to be up close to the pace. If he was like a horse that's an E or an EP and he needed to be really, really close, and that's how he wins his races, this actually would be a negative plot, because he'd be concerned of him keeping up. But he's a horse that can come from off the pace. And so why he's so close left and why he's in quadrant 3 is because he has tactical speed also. I think that plot is very positive. Like I said, if he was a horse that absolutely needed the lead, it'd be negative. I hope that helps and doesn't get anyone more confused, but that's just the way it is. And obviously the big square means that he can finish, and that's the important thing. Okay, made that point. Number 8, this is the one you probably think is going to be the favorite. Emily comes out of that common race. We keep on saying the common race, like you say, every week somebody wins out of that race, right?
That's part of why I think he'll be favored in this race, because there's been some slow adopters. We were quick. We figured it out like right off the bat. But after last weekend, everyone got, oh, okay, Classic Causeway winning. Okay, that's a key race. So no one wants to like kind of miss that aspect. So you have a horse that's 2 for 2, a graded stakes winner. He won that race that everybody's now jumping on board. Perfect 2 for 2, speed figures check the boxes. So I think this horse will be favored in this race, which just kind of by default creates some value on Zanden. And while he is certainly capable, there are some knocks, in my opinion, as a horse that's going to be a favorite in this particular race off his first 2 starts. We can see on debut, it was a flow aided win coming from off the pace, and even in at that time of the season out in Kentucky, McPeak was sending out very live horses, and so those horses were performing very well. And Smile Happy was bet down that day. I can't remember if it was 10-1 or 12-1 morning line, but it was kind of, one of those kind of like they knew, that he was
Yeah.
bet down. He was very well met.
7-2, yeah.
Yeah. And in the not just sorry, not from the debut, but from in the Kentucky Jockey Club, he was bet down that in that race from the morning line, and won with that kind of outside flow trip. Also, what that shows me, just in terms of a pattern where he improved in that second start, that this race might be a race that he needs, right? Because he's coming back from the break, and he's already shown that he moves forward in a second start. So where you just kind of have those combinations of factors in terms of, mostly you're making the case of form cycle, which is something that you don't, it doesn't pop off the page, right? You kind of have to read between the lines to kind of see, but that's sort of the way that I want to read this horse as the favorite in this race, with some good alternatives.
But and the other thing is what you have to remember, he's in quadrant 4, so he's going to be coming from behind. It is always difficult for me, especially with a pace contention of light snowflake, is for a favorite, especially a favorite. He's got to pass a lot of horses, right? And so, and not only does he have to pass a lot of horses, he's got to sustain it for 9 furlongs too. So that gets introduced into the mix here. So those 9 furlong races are run a little bit differently, right? He's got to have a really good sustained move, or you got to be either closer to the pace. Now, I don't know, maybe he will be closer, but still, that's just another knock for a horse that's got to win. As a favorite, is coming from quadrant 4 with not a lot of contention. So that's kind of another thing that I'm a little bit against him from that standpoint. I think tactically the 7 and the 5 and some others have an advantage over him.
Agree.
The 9 I thought was a toss, just based on speed. This horse would have to get a lot faster, right? So I don't spend much time. The 10 is the other interesting contender in here, coming out of your area of expertise, Southern California. So what about Slow Down Andy?
Well, he's another horse that, you just, in terms of speed figures, is progressing. He's moving forward with each race. There's no knocks. It's, green, black, all positive. Another horse that's just, in terms of form cycle, is going to have to come off the layoff. This is a 70-day break. Could get a lot of attention in here because he won the Los Alamitos Futurity, the horse that finished second. Messier came back and won, ran off the screen. So, people kind of latching onto those factors. We have the optics figure range up there. And so you can see, just in terms of class, just what a big step up in class this is going to be from those races. So he's going to have to, maybe not necessarily in terms of speed figures improve, but in terms of level of competition, field size, he's going to have to improve. He's drawn outside today. He has, I'm trying to remember off the plot, but he's kind of part of that kind of early pace with some of those other horses to his inside. Again, another horse that's going to be going the 9 furlong distance. He did get the 2 turns, but that was at Los Alamitos, did kind of benefit from a more compact field. Messier backing up. These are just sort of factors that, sort of are more in his favor. Maybe he's a little bit more dressed up coming into this race where he has some hurdles.
Yeah, I think the Messier thing is going to really, I remember that now. And so I think that's going to really play to him getting a lot more money probably too. So I think you're right. Zanden may not be the favorite, and I'm starting to like Zanden more and more, as we go through this, so.
I did like a double take looking at the morning line, like, wait, am I not reading this correctly? 9-2, I'll book it right now.
It's funny when you watch all these races and you kind of know the horses and you kind of compare and contrast them. It's like, it's very important to watch races. Okay. So I think that was good. That was good analysis on the 10. Thank you. It helped me. So, overall, I think to me, like I said, I think Zanden may sit the trip, get the jump on the 8. You know, if the 10 could be part of the early pressure, you may get caught wide with the 5, who's you know, an honest horse. You made the case for the 3, maybe a little more upside. So, you know, I think those are the main contenders in here. Anything to add, Emily?
No, I think that's good coverage of this race.
Yeah, great race. So enjoy it, everyone, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out on Optics EQ, the new opticseq.com, with some of those new features that Emily pointed out. And thanks for listening. Thanks for your support.